What's going on, guys? So I'm just getting back from a trip out to Padre Island, and I wanted to make a video to address an email that I received from one of my viewers. And it's a very disturbing email because it points out a failure of a product that is really popular amongst fifth wheel owners. So we're going to talk about it, we're going to dissect it, and we're going to see specifically what could have happened to either prevent this or possibly what improvements need to be made to the product to prevent it in the future. And some of those improvements I've heard have already been implemented. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Alright, so the video that was sent to me was from a viewer who has a DRV, and this is a very heavy fifth wheel, but it's their lighter version of the fifth wheel called the Air. And it's still a full profile fifth wheel, it's still a very large fifth wheel, but it's not built on the same chassis and the same frame design as a super heavy normal DRV would. So there are ways that manufacturers can eliminate weight, and the way DRV did it with their Airline was to put it on more of a conventional drop frame, fifth wheel frame, and that actually brings the weight down significantly. So even though this is a DRV, it's a lot lighter than you might traditionally think a DRV would be. And I mean lighter in the sense that it's like 17,500 pounds GVWR, which is actually the same GVWR as our Brookstone, which is about 8,000 pounds, 6,000 to 8,000 pounds lighter than a traditional DRV. So as you watch this video and you listen to it, just keep that in mind. This isn't your full-on super heavy triple frame, DRV that you might normally see. So what happened? So this specific viewer has the Andersen Ultimate Fifth Wheel Connection, which is an aluminum fifth wheel hitch that's designed to essentially lock onto the top of a goose ball in the bed of your truck, and it has an adapter which connects to your kingpin on the fifth wheel, and it's almost like a gooseneck connection, but it's elevated much higher than your traditional gooseneck connection. Now, the value or the benefit of this hitch for a lot of folks is the fact that it is very easy to remove when you don't want to use it. It only weighs in the 30-pound range, 35, 36-pound range. It's very lightweight, and it developed a huge following when it came out because the folks at Andersen had done all these tests. They had crushed it. They had done all sorts of crazy stuff, again, including crushing it and then towing a large toy hauler with a crushed hitch to show you as a consumer that even though it's made out of aluminum, you can trust it. It's strong enough. Well, this specific hitch failed on a customer's truck that was very vocally in support of the Andersen Ultimate Fifth Wheel Connection. He was a big fan of it. He told a lot of people that it was the one to get. A lot of his friends bought this hitch. But then ultimately, something occurred which caused this hitch to fail. And when this hitch failed, it failed catastrophically. Now, speaking to this gentleman, or at least communicating back and forth with him, he basically indicated that he was returning from a very long, almost halfway across the country and back trip, from California to Texas, then back to California when this hitch failed. But prior to that, he had towed quite a bit with this hitch and experienced no problems with it. But then right when he's getting home, actually right down the street from his house, the hitch buckled and failed. And I don't know if buckling is the right term because of how it actually failed, right? So When you look at the videos and when I spoke with the actual owner, he indicated that the welds broke, it snapped off, and the whole thing essentially rotated back and collapsed, and it caused the overhang of the fifth wheel to collapse onto the bed of his truck, which is, I believe it's an F350 or an F250, and apparently it didn't do a terrible amount of visual damage to the truck, which is pretty awesome. It did a lot of damage in terms of cost because things were moved, things were shifted out of position, but overall it didn't look terrible, and I think that's probably a big plus for folks who probably are thinking, man, what would happen if this happened to our fifth wheel? So the failure point appears to be something within the structure of the hitch. Now keep in mind, this is the Generation 2 Andersen Ultimate fifth wheel connection. So there's 3 generations. The second generation, I believe, was the first aluminum version of it, the first generation being steel, and then the third generation, which is the newest generation, which has been out for a while now, it is a more robust version of the second generation. Basically, they made all sorts of evolutionary improvements to make it a more structural product. Now, the hitch in question, again, was a second generation hitch, and that specific product had a far different design in terms of bracing and reinforcement and some of the structure versus the third generation. After speaking to the folks over at Andersen about this issue and regarding this specific issue, I learned a lot about what they've done, how they've created a better product since then, and actually the incentive they have for folks to get out of the second generation and into their third generation product for like $500. Basically, they have to destroy their second generation by cutting a leg off, demonstrating that in pictures and showing the hitch with the leg removed, and then they get the new hitch for $500, which is roughly half the price of what it would normally go for, which is a pretty good deal. Now, keep in mind that the failure of this second generation product in the video is kind of a mystery. What specifically could have happened? Was it just extensive usage and failure due to fatigue? What specifically caused a chain reaction that ultimately led to this hitch failing is still a bit of a mystery. Of course, we do have the pictures of where the failures occurred ultimately after it completely failed, but what initially led it down this path is unknown. Now, do I believe personally that the Andersen Ultimate fifth wheel connection is a bad product? Absolutely not. I actually reviewed this product, and I believe it was the second generation a long time ago when we had our Coachman Chaparral fifth wheel, and I was pretty impressed with it. The reason I ultimately didn't go with it is because I did not like having to raise the front end of my fifth wheel up as high as I needed to couple to it, which ultimately made me switch back to the B&W companion hitch. So I don't necessarily think that this is a widespread thing. You know, after speaking with the folks at Andersen, the number of units that have actually suffered some type of failure like this is incredibly low, and the vast majority of them, again, according to Andersen, are related to some type of an event that took place, whether it was an accident with the vehicle, whether it was a harsh braking event, whether it was the RV being drug up a grade while the brakes were locked on the trailer because maybe the disconnect got engaged, things like that. It was always related to something that was significant. Again, a car accident or a harsh event taking place, or a series of harsh events taking place. But the overall number of units that have actually failed is very, 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 very small. It's a tiny percentage of the number of units that were actually produced and that are on the road. That said, they did decide to come up with the third generation, which is a significantly more reinforced version of the second generation, and they were actually going to title this as like a heavy-duty version and sell both of them still, but they decided to just, you know, get rid of the second gen and move to the third gen, and it would be the option that you have if you want to go with the ultimate fifth wheel connection from Andersen. So all that said, I've heard of no failures of the third generation product. Again, this version has been SAE tested, 900,000 total cycles, basically in every direction. They have all the documentation to back that up. So I do feel that this product is a good product. And I did actually hear back from the owner of the hitch that failed in this video. He was very frustrated when it happened. There were some customer service related changes that were taking place at Andersen at the time this occurred, so that definitely didn't help the situation. But after getting in contact with the right people, they took care of the problem. He is going to continue to use the Andersen Ultimate fifth wheel connection, but he is moving to the 3rd generation of it. He was provided with an opportunity to actually go out to Andersen and see the manufacturing process, including the robotic welding, the process to ensure that all the welds had proper penetration, and that the new hitch is designed in a way that gives him peace of mind. Because I can guarantee you that there's a trust factor thing that takes place here. I had a product from this manufacturer that failed. It failed in a pretty bad way. Was I taken care of to the degree that made me happy? And secondly, do I trust the product moving forward? And according to him, he trusts the product moving forward. He's very pleased with how they've responded now and how they've taken care of him and the product that he'll be using moving forward, which is the 3rd generation Andersen Ultimate fifth wheel connection. So this ultimately is a happy story. It's a happy ending, and the customer is very pleased with the overall experience, what he's learned about the newest generation of the product, and he plans on using it and staying an Andersen customer, which is awesome. So if you are interested in their program where they actually, you know, get you into the 3rd generation at a significantly reduced cost, I'll put some of that information in the description here and maybe overlay it in the video. And if this is a process you want to go through to upgrade to the 3rd generation hitch, you might want to take advantage of that. Anyways, guys, I would love if you left a comment below. Give me your feedback. Let me know how you feel about all of this, the entire story, what specifically happened, if you are an Andersen Ultimate fifth wheel connection user, if you've ever had any issues, how their customer service has supported you, and let me know what your feedback is. Again, please drop a comment below. If you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.